Many traveling circuses in the 1800s and 1900s saw people with unusual deformities or rare abilities as a quick way to cash in. Crowds would flock to see these sideshows, where people with strange conditions were put on display and branded as freak shows. Some of these people found a sliver of fame, while others were simply exploited for shock value. It was never about empathy. It was about the spectacle, the money, and the curiosity that pulled audiences in. So, join us for this video as we look at the top 15 circus freaks that actually existed. Number 15. World's largest woman and smallest man. In July 1922, the American sideshow circuit unveiled one of its most vivid juxtapositions. Nellie Blanche Lane, weighing 642 pounds, and Clarence Chesterfield Howerton, just 2 feet 4 inches tall. Their act was advertised as the world's largest woman and smallest man. Clarence, then a child performer, would later gain recognition for portraying one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. Nellie, towering beside him in photos, captivated audiences with both her size and charisma. Together, they built a visual spectacle of contrasts, blending youthful innocence with physical exaggeration. Their photos weren't merely promotional, they were media events, engineered to stir public curiosity and boost ticket sales. While Clarence continued performing and acting, Nellie's later life remains undocumented. What endures is the arresting image of them together, two people whose physical extremes became part of circus mythology. Though defined by look, they embodied a cultural era obsessed with the boundaries of the human form. Number 14. General Might. Francis Joseph Flynn, widely known as General Might, was born in 1864 in New York and reached an adult height of just 21 inches. Hailed as one of the tiniest men of his era, he began performing at an early age, traveling throughout the US, UK, and Australia. Often dressed in elaborate military-style uniforms and displayed beside oversized props, he amplified the illusion of scale. Although often treated as a novelty, Flynn possessed a clever, confident presence that won over crowds worldwide. In 1884, he married Millie Edwards, an English dwarf, in a wedding that drew global attention. Their union wasn't a mere spectacle. It was a public celebration of love and resilience. Later, Flynn settled in Australia, seeking a life of peace beyond the spotlight. He passed away in 1898 from tuberculosis. Remembered not just for his height, but for his bold spirit, General Might left behind a legacy grounded in pride, charm, and quiet perseverance. Number 13. Ella Ewing. Ella Ewing was born in 1872 in Missouri and eventually reached a towering height of over 8 feet, making her one of the tallest women of her era. Diagnosed with gigantism, her growth placed enormous stress on her body, but it also made her a figure of public fascination. Though her parents initially declined offers from promoters, financial strain led them to reconsider. At 18, Ella began performing at fairs, museums, and circus tents under the moniker the Missouri Giantess. Unlike many acts that leaned on spectacle, Ella brought warmth and grace to her appearances. She wore custom-made dresses, stood politely for hours, and welcomed audiences with kindness. With her earnings, she built a home tailored to her size, complete with high ceilings and oversized furniture. She never married and kept her private life guarded, but she lived with autonomy and self-respect. Ella passed away in 1913 due to complications from her terrifying condition. Her legacy speaks to quiet strength and earned dignity. Number 12. Jacob Nacken. This guy was born in Dusseldorf in 1906 and reached an astonishing height of 7 feet 3 inches. These features have earned him the title of the tallest German soldier during World War II. Before the deadly war, he had a successful career in circuses throughout Europe and the US, performing under the name Germany's Giant. His towering stature and kind demeanor made him a popular figure long before his military service. Drafted into the Wehrmacht, his combat role was short-lived. In 1944, near Calais, which is in France, he surrendered to a much shorter British corporal named Bob Roberts, who stood only 5 feet 3 inches tall. A photograph of their meeting became iconic, symbolizing the bizarre contrasts war often produced. After the war, Nacken relocated to the U.S. and returned to the stage, eventually working as Santa Claus in department stores. Despite his immense size, Nacken was remembered for his gentle personality and spent his life bridging the worlds of warfare and performance. He was a legend. Number 11. The Black Scorpion. This sideshow act sounds far more extreme than it really is. Known as the Black Scorpion or Lobster Boy, this claw-handed performer represents a rare shift in freak show history, one rooted in self-empowerment, not exploitation. In 2008, he joined Coney Island's Sideshows by the Seashore and later appeared on TLC's Taboo. Unlike performers driven by need, Lobster Boy uses his look as a statement. He's not hiding. He's redefining visibility, making it his power. His presence challenges how we see disability, control, and identity. Rather than being someone audiences stare at in shock, he's someone who stares back and speaks. He performs not out of necessity, but from conviction. He encourages kids with limb differences to feel proud, not ashamed. He even sells molds of his hand to fans. The act may sound bizarre, but the message is revolutionary. He's not here for pity. He's here to show the strength in being unmistakably seen. Number 10. Madame Gustica. Madame Gustica was the stage name of a striking woman from an Ethiopian tribe where lip-stretching symbolized beauty and cultural identity. Extended lips, shaped using ornate plates, were considered marks of status, maturity, and pride. Gustica, who had undergone this traditional rite, was brought to New York in the 1930s and presented as a sideshow curiosity. On April 12, 1930, she was famously photographed smoking a pipe on stage, an image that later became iconic for its stark clash of tradition and spectacle. Though her presentation was shaped by colonialist bias, Gustica's presence confronted Western audiences unfamiliar with non-European customs. Her lip plate wasn't a deformity, but a culturally meaningful adornment. While her story has often been reduced to that singular photograph, it carries a deeper truth. A woman removed from her homeland, displayed as exotic, yet standing with poise and self-respect. Gustica was more than an exhibit. She was a symbol of cultural resilience. Number 9. Elizabeth Green. Elizabeth Green, famously known as the Stork Woman, was born in the late 1800s with unusually avian features, a sharply pointed nose and narrow chin. Promoters seized on her appearance, giving her the nickname that stuck throughout her career. She performed with top shows like the Ringling Brothers, often dressed in feathered costumes to amplify her bird-like image. But Elizabeth was much more than visual intrigue. Off stage, she was clever, humorous, and fiercely independent. She managed her own earnings, negotiated her contracts, and carved out a lasting career in a world where few women had such control. Though often featured alongside other performers, her business savvy and confidence made her singular. Her story isn't widely told today, but her decades in the circus world speak for themselves. Elizabeth wasn't just a figure of spectacle. She was a woman who turned the circus lens back on itself, owning her image and thriving in an industry built on exaggeration. She was the real deal. Number 8. Thomas Wetters. Thomas, also known as Thomas Wadhouse, was an English sideshow performer from the 18th century. He gained fame for possessing what still stands as the world's longest recorded nose, stretching a remarkable 7.8 inches in length. While little is documented about his early life, Thomas became known across Yorkshire for flaunting this bizarre facial anomaly. His nose was so extraordinary that it earned him a wax figure at Ripley's Believe It or Not museums, securing his place in history as an anatomical oddity. In an age where physical differences often led to isolation or mockery, Wetters transformed his into a livelihood. Spectators were both amused and astounded by his unusual appearance. While some accounts describe him as intellectually limited, his name still lingers in the annals of circus history. Wetters' legacy, though strange, symbolizes the peculiar ways in which human uniqueness was commodified and exhibited during the formative years of freak show entertainment. What do you think about him? Let us know. Number 7. Rosa Matilda Richter. In 1877, a teenage girl named Rosa stepped into a cannon, not as a trick performer, but as the first person ever fired from one. Performing under the name Zazel, she was only 14 when she made history. This wasn't an illusion. A spring-loaded cannon launched her across the stage inside London's Royal Aquarium, and she landed in a net. Zazel's nimble build and fearless presence made her the perfect fit for the act. And she didn't stop after one flight. She toured internationally, performing the stunt hundreds of times before sold-out crowds. Nothing like it had ever been seen. But repeated impacts eventually wore down her body, forcing an early retirement. Still, the image of a young girl soaring through the air became iconic. Zazel didn't just entertain, she invented an entirely new brand of adrenaline performance, changing the circus forever and proving that audacity could be just as captivatingly good as illusion. Number 6. George Lippert. George was born in Germany in 1844 with 2 working hearts and a fully grown third leg. The extra limb extended from his right pelvis, though it wasn't entirely functional. Lippert insisted both hearts were verified by medical examinations, though skepticism lingered. He began performing in the 1860s as the Three-Legged Man, appearing in traveling circuses and dime museums across Europe and the US. Unlike acts relying purely on shock, Lippert embraced storytelling. He explained his anatomy in vivid detail and carried himself with quiet dignity. Though his fame flourished early on, the rise of more extreme performers eventually pushed him into obscurity. Tragically, he lost his additional leg to gangrene and endured poverty during his final years. He died in 1906, largely forgotten. Still, Lippert's life remains a powerful testament to a man who accepted his biological rarity and shared it with the world on his own terms. Number 5. Mademoiselle Gabrielle. Mademoiselle Gabrielle was born in Switzerland in 1884 with sacral agenesis, a rare condition that left her without fully developed legs. Despite her lower body impairment, her torso was perfectly proportioned, marked by refined posture, delicate features, and a grace that left audiences speechless. Billed as the half-woman, Gabrielle entered the European sideshow circuit in her teens and quickly rose to prominence. Her elegance and poise reshaped public perception of physical difference. In the early 1900s, she joined Barnum and Bailey's Greatest Show on Earth in the US, performing in luxurious gowns and demonstrating skills like embroidery and piano. Frequently photographed in formal attire, she refused to be portrayed as grotesque. Instead, she insisted on being seen with dignity, charm, and self-respect. Gabrielle rejected pity outright, demanding recognition as refined, not pitiable. Though she eventually withdrew from public life, her influence endured. Her legacy stands as a quiet rebellion, reminding the world that beauty and strength come in countless forms. Now let's head over to Number 4. The Legless Legend. Eli Bowen was born with phocomelia, a condition that left his legs underdeveloped, with his feet growing near his hips. Rather than hide from the world, Bowen turned towards skill, training his upper body until it became a powerhouse of acrobatic skill. Nicknamed the Legless Acrobat, he began performing at age 13, astonishing crowds with handstands, pole climbs, and even shooting rifles with his feet. He toured internationally with top acts like Cooper, Bailey and Company, and Barnum and Bailey. Bowen was more than a talented performer. He was an innovator, regularly collaborating with others to create groundbreaking routines. Off stage, he led a fulfilling life. In 1875, he married Anna M. Statham, and they raised 4 sons together. Known for his wit and outspoken stance on disability rights, Bowen refused to let his condition confine him. He built a career, a family, and a lasting legacy rooted in skill, grit, and unwavering personal pride. Number 3. Jean Libera. Born in Rome in 1884, Jean Libera became famously known as the man with the parasitic twin. Protruding from his chest was a partially formed twin, complete with a face, 1 arm, and an underdeveloped torso. Though the twin had no awareness or movement, its striking appearance made Jean a rare medical phenomenon and a top draw on the sideshow circuit. His condition, parasitic twinning, blurred the boundaries between medical anomaly and human curiosity. Yet Jean never exploited his situation for shock value. He carried himself with refinement, touring through Europe and later the United States. Always impeccably dressed, he maintained composure and refused to let his condition define his identity. While doctors often sought to study him, Jean kept firm control over his personal boundaries. Little is known about his private life, but his story remains unforgettable, a complex reflection of how spectacle, identity, and autonomy collided in an era that often confused fascination with dignity. Number 2. Betty Lou Williams. Betty was born in Georgia with ischiopagus, a condition in which a parasitic twin was fused at the pelvis. The attached twin had limbs, organs, and even a partially formed torso, but lacked any independent brain activity. Surgical separation was ruled out due to the extreme risk to Betty Lou's life. Raised by a foster family, she entered sideshows as a child, performing under the name the 2-in-1 Girl. Unlike many acts, Betty Lou approached her appearances with a sense of purpose. She clearly explained her condition and spoke candidly about her routines and challenges. Touring through the 1940s and 50s, she gained financial independence and earned admiration within the sideshow community. Eventually, she left the stage to live a quiet, private life. Her strength and unwillingness to be reduced to a spectacle helped change public perception. Betty's story is one of dignity, strength, and self-definition in an era that often traded in otherness. Number 1. Robert Melvin. Robert, famously known as the Man with Two Faces, was born on May 9, 1920 in Missouri and stood out due to a severe case of neurofibromatosis. The disorder caused large fibrous tumors, mainly on the right side of his face, which led to early exclusion from public schooling. Despite this, he pursued a full education and was recognized locally for his humor, intelligence, and warmth. By 1949, Robert found purpose in Coney Island's sideshow scene. Though his appearance drew stares, it was his charisma and intellect that left lasting impressions. Remarkably, he also handled bookkeeping duties for the show, an uncommon dual role that underscored his sharp mind and dependability. Offstage, he was cherished by friends, neighbors, and fellow performers. Robert never saw his condition as shameful. It was simply part of him. His journey reflects quiet determination, self-respect, and grace in a world that too often saw difference as spectacle rather than strength. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon in the next one.